It is now 7:01. I'd like to welcome everyone once again to our Global Academic Resource Panel. Today we have with us 5 panelists. We have Maya Gillespie from Financial Services, Christopher Beyer, Academic Advisor, Angela Bonner from Virtual Mentors, Rebecca Vandevoort from Proctoring, and Meredith Goodwin, Director of WSU's Access Center. I'd like to thank you all for being here. Each panelist will take a turn in presenting, and then after the first 2 presentations, we will have a brief Q&A and then another one at the end. So I encourage you to leave your questions in the chat box. I think we can start with Maya, who is the Assistant Director of Student Services and Outreach, if you want to share your screen. I will encourage you to please, if you can, keep your mics muted just so that everyone else can hear the presentation.
Okay, and let me pull up my presentation. Okay, you guys can see my screen okay? Awesome. Okay, so like Andrea said, I'm Maya Gillespie. I work in Student Financial Services, so the financial aid office. And we're just going to talk to you a little bit about what we do in our office and what kind of resources we have to help you. So, excuse me, I have really bad allergies, and so I'm just have this little cough today. I apologize. But some of the things like that we do are going to be to load the financial aid applications. There are 2 applications. It's going to be the FAFSA, which is what most people are familiar with, and then the WASFA. And so the difference between the 2 is if you are a U.S. resident or a permanent, I guess that's, yeah, there's some stuff with eligibility with citizenship. So an eligible non-citizen, you do FAFSA. So most students are going to complete that FAFSA application. That's done at studentaid.gov. That is something that needs to be done every single year in order to get financial aid. If you are a DACA student, HB 1079, the application you're going to want to do is the WASFA. And that's going to be an application through the state of Washington at readysetgrad.wa.gov. I think I have a slide on that later that has that information too. But then these students are only going to be eligible for state financial aid. So we're going to take those applications, we're going to load them, create a financial aid package. And so we can see that we have the cost of attendance for global campus students. We're going to provide aid options depending on your dependency status, if you're independent, dependent, non-resident, resident, all sorts of factors, income on the FAFSA or WASFA, that's all going to go into that financial aid package. So our office provides financial aid options for you to pay for your schooling and education costs. How we can help, we have a dedicated call center. So we are open 8 to 4:45 Monday through Friday to answer calls. We also answer emails, and sometimes, especially right now, since we are very busy, we're a little bit behind on emails, but we do have students that are helping us in the evenings and weekends to help answer those. But feel free to give us a call at any time within that time frame, and we'd be happy to look at your financial aid account, answer some specific questions. I probably can't answer specific questions to your accounts tonight, just because a lot of it's confidential information, so I can't share it with everybody. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. If not, I do have a slide with our contact information later. Where we're kind of at in the cycle now is that we just started our aid disbursement process. So on Monday, we started dispersing everybody's financial aid for fall semester. All the charges, if you're enrolled, should be on your account. The only time you'd see aid probably not dispersing would be if you're less than full time, if you're caught up in SAP, or maybe you haven't enrolled in classes, or you have some outstanding to-do items in that task tile. So those are going to be things that are going to hold up any aid from dispersing. Again, if you have questions on that kind of stuff and you don't know what's going on or what's holding anything up, contact our office. We'd be happy to figure out what's going on and let you know your action items. Where you can expect to be in the cycle right now is, one, hopefully you're enrolled, but you should have a financial aid package. Again, if there's something else, if you don't see a financial aid package, contact our office right away. We can see what's going on and help you get on your way with that. But you should have a financial aid package at this point in the game. We do have an appointment scheduler. And in the past, before COVID, everything was in person, right? We had in-person appointments, and we didn't actually have a way to meet with global campus students that worked with our office and how we were structured, and then work for Global Campus. But now, blessing in disguise, COVID has given us the option of doing Zoom appointments. And so I have the slide is our appointment scheduler link. It's on our main website. But then you can either schedule a phone appointment or a Zoom. And so how this is going to be different from just calling into our office, you can sign up for a specific time, and it's about half hour that's allotted per appointment, I believe. And then at that point, someone like myself or an advisor or another director would call you or meet with you on that Zoom, and we'd spend that half hour going over any financial aid questions you have. And so we are dedicated to you for that half hour. And it's just our time with you. It's around your schedule and what works for you. So it's not like we have someone else in the tier trying to get through to us. We're there for you. But that's going to be a cool option. It's going to be open all throughout fall semester. I am the Global Campus Liaison for financial aid. And so one thing that we've been working on is trying to find an avenue for Global Campus students to meet with us and get that kind of in-person experience, but have that appointment opportunity to meet with one of our advisors or directors rather than somebody that answers the phones. And so you also just, like I said, you get a little bit more in-depth and can ask more questions, but have a little bit more time to meet with that person rather than a quick phone call. So this might be something that we're looking at going forward. How to get your financial aid. So right now, you should have already filled out that application. You should have a financial aid package. But like I said earlier, those are the two applications that you would complete. You complete one or the other, not both. But there's the websites for them. In order to get financial aid, you have to do this every single year. Both of them open on October 1st. And if you guys are going to be a continuing student, the deadline next year, and it's a deadline for us in the sense that if you don't have your FAFSA or WASFA completed by this date, you may miss out on some of the grant funding, but the priority date would be November 30th. So mark your calendar now. I know we're not even thinking about that kind of stuff yet, but once October rolls around, we're really going to start promoting that, and we're going to share stuff with Global Campus. You guys do have this wonderful newsletter. I think it comes out bi-weekly. Something like that. I can't remember the frequency, but we do oftentimes put a little blurb in there about financial aid. So just keep an eye on that. We will definitely try to hit the promotion of FAFSA and WASFA hard in there. Like I said, meet those priority deadlines. Again, if you can always turn it in later. So let's say you haven't even filled out your FAFSA yet. A student's always going to be eligible for at least student loans. But if you meet those deadlines, if you meet that application deadline and then also a verification if selected, you're going to get the best financial aid package that you could be eligible for. And then lastly, here's our contact slide. I mean, there's a lot of information, and I don't think I can cover everything in the time given. So here is our website, our email, all of our contact information. We are very active on social media too. We do have some really cool things that we do on social media. On Mondays, we do like a money tip, either about budgeting, smart spending, that kind of stuff. On Fridays, we do Scholarship Friday. And so every Friday, we do promote a new scholarship for students. And so that would be something that you might want to follow us to kind of take a look at that stuff and see if there's anything of interest for you. And if I can figure out, let's see, I was going to go to our website real quick and just do a little plug about our website. If you still have outstanding verification items, if our office is asking you to turn something in, you're going to want to do that at Submit SFS Docs here. It's our secure portal. We don't accept documents via email, but that would be the preferred method. It gets to us really fast, and then can just kind of speed up that process, and we can hopefully get your financial aid package soon. Another place you might want to take a look is going to be in this form section. Sometimes the financial aid or the financial situation for you and your family may have changed since the tax information that's on your application. If so, we have an appeal in place there, but there's going to be a lot of the forms are going to be for those. There's appeals in there, and then for things that we haven't maybe accounted for. So if your situation has changed, you may have something in there. Feel free to contact our office. We're happy to walk you through any of those processes. That's kind of financial aid, I guess, in a nutshell. So I will turn it over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Maya. So we do have a couple of questions of financial aid, but we can do those after advising. So next up, we have our academic advisor, Christopher Bayer. You want to share your screen?
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully this works. My name's Chris Bayer. I've been working as an advisor with Global Campus for several years. I advise English, communication, and social sciences, as well as humanities. And I represent several different advisors. There's about 8 of us that work with all of the students in Global Campus. And we work with all of the different degrees, but all of us are specialists. And the one thing that I would say, like starting off as academic advising, is that we're the ultimate generalist. And what that means is that if you have a question, definitely your academic advisor is the first person that you'd want to go to, email or call them, so that they can help you with all the different types of information that is needed or available to you. There's so much that's out there in terms of information that academic advising is kind of your one stop to have that person help you guide you through your degree. So the overview of what I'm going to discuss in the next few minutes here, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, is I have slides on we advise and you decide. And basically what that means is that we'll share information for you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Definitely as you transition into Washington State University Global, you're going to take more ownership of your degree, and you'll use your advisor as a resource, but you'll be really responsible for your pathway through. And that's your advisor is a really great resource to help you, guide you through that process. Always be prepared. I'll talk a little bit about your advising appointments and just what that means to be prepared. Many of our students come in with transfer credit, whether that's from another 4-year university, in-state or out of state, or it could be a community college, both in-state and out of state. So I'll talk a little bit more about transfer credits because as an academic advisor, we work with different transfer credits a lot. And then finally, the most important thing, our goal is to get you to graduation. And so, you know, everything that we do is really designed to support you and help you get to that point where you have the cap and you turn the tassel and celebrate. So, we advise, you decide. What that means is your academic advisor has a lot of information, but you know yourself the best. So it's really important as you get into your academic advising meetings with your advisor that you share as much as you can about yourself and your goals and what you want from your degree. The more you share and the more open that you are, the better the experience will be, and the better information you'll get from your academic advisor. So that's a really important tip. Before you go into an academic advising meeting, reflect on what's important to you and what you want from your degree. Again, like many of your goals that you want to attain by attending Global Campus can be realized by having honest and open conversations with your academic advisor. And then your academic advisor will give you suggestions, and you'll be the one to decide and take ownership of your degree. And I think if that's one big piece of advice that I can give all of you, is really take ownership, like really, you know, go into your academic advising meeting and all of your classes really knowing that you're the one that's responsible and in charge, because I think that you'll get a really good experience, you know, being in that situation. My next slide is always be prepared. So as you get into your specific meetings, make sure that you have access to a computer and undivided attention to your advisor during your advising appointment. That's really important because most of the academic advisors, they're going to be walking you through resources that require you to have computer access and the ability to log into MyWSU and Blackboard Learn and all the different resources that are available. So it's important to have those resources up. Also, make sure that you review your degree requirements before the meeting to understand what you need to graduate. There's all of the different elements of a degree can be complicated. So the more you review it before, the better it soaks in as you go through your advising appointment. And then finally, what works really well is have a list of questions that you'd like to ask your advisor during your advising meeting. And really it can be anything, any general questions that you have. Some of the popular ones that I have fielded are like textbook questions or specific questions about how individual courses transfer to Washington State University. So really go through with a fine-tooth comb and look at your transfer credit report, look at your official degree plan and get acquainted with it because you'll be working with those resources as you move through. And we've spent a lot of time talking about transfer credit. For those of you that are bringing transfer credit in, make sure that you review the transfer credit report that's located in MyWSU to see how your transfer credit has been applied to your degree. It's different for everybody. And literally, I've seen, I think, probably thousands of transfer credit reports, and not one is exactly the same. So yours is unique. It comes from, all the different universities and colleges that you've been to, and some of most of your credits will transfer. Some may or may not, depending on if they're technical in nature. Your academic advisor is a specialist to be able to help you interpret that transfer credit report to see how it applies to your graduation requirements. Just so that you know, a maximum amount of lower division credits is 73 semester credits, which is about 110 quarter credits, and the maximum total is 90. So keep an eye on that as you take a look at your transfer credit report. A really great resource is our Transfer Center, and you can access the transfer credit website at that website that you see on this screen, transfercredit.wsu.edu. It's a tremendous resource. They update it all the time. And so that's something that I encourage everybody to visit the website and really get acquainted with it. My next slide is graduation information. Your goal is, when starting at WSU, is to finish your degree. And that's our primary goal, is to help you get there. So in general, no matter what degree that you are trying to attain, 120 total credits and 40 upper division credits earns your bachelor's degree from WSU. So really look at all of your credits and everything that you've completed and have that conversation with your academic advisor so that you know where you're at in that process each semester that you register for classes. As part of the 120 credits, there's UCOR requirements and major requirements. If you have transferred an associate arts degree, direct transfer agreement from a community college in Washington State, that will satisfy lower division UCOR requirements. more information will be explained by your academic advisor. Once you hit 90 credits, you can apply for graduation. And it's really important that once you are a senior, that you do apply for your degree, because you won't receive your degree until you apply for your degree through the MyWSU website. And then finally, what I'll say about the graduation information is commencement and graduation are actually separate. So graduation is through the registrar's office, and commencement is its own area. So more information will be shared with you with your academic advisor as you get closer to graduation. And finally, these are some resources that you can take a look at. And some of these resources will be discussed a little bit later on in this this presentation, or in this this session, I should say. There's an advising course space in your Blackboard Learn. Many of you have probably already taken orientation, which is great. So that's a great first step resource that you've already done. And you'll see that there's free e-tutoring, career counseling, library services is really important. And then virtual mentors it's going to be discussed a little bit later on too. So I think the most important thing that I would say is that your academic advisor is your first person that you can connect with to get information. If anything doesn't seem right, or if you need a little bit more information on something, definitely call our 1-800 number and schedule an appointment with your academic advisor, because they want to help you and they want to make sure that you have all the information you need to be successful in your degree. So that's my presentation. Thanks so much for listening, and I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea.
Thank you so much, Christopher. So if anyone has any questions regarding academic advising, please feel free to leave those in the chat box. In the meantime, Maya, we did have a couple of questions about financial services. So one of them asks about financial aid disbursement. So where would one go to find the dates per semester for the disbursements?
For the aid disbursement?
Yes.
So, and I think it should be on the registrar site under the academic calendar. I think that's included in all of that. I'm trying to see, I don't know if we have it on our, I don't think we have it on ours. We don't really have a good calendar on our site, but I think it should be under the academic calendar through the registrar site. And just kind of think, so for any semester, we can't disperse aid more than 10 days prior to school starting, right? Typically, for an academic term, especially for fall, charges on students' accounts, like it's usually mid-July, right? So everything was really delayed this year. So we started our aid disbursement process on Monday, and for spring term, I think it's going to be about the same. It's just after the new year. So just kind of think about a week prior to the semester starting, that's when we're going to disperse aid. I believe the Bursar's office for WSU will notify students if they are getting a refund. So if you do have a direct deposit refund coming to you, you should get an email notification about that. You would be able to also see this activity on your student account. So under the, you'd be able to see it dispersed, I believe, on the financial aid tile, but then also on your financial account tile, you can see all the award activities. So you'll see the charges posted, and you'll see the aid go through and apply to those charges.
Perfect, thank you. And we also had one more regarding the purchase of books with loans. So when they order their books, how can they use their loans? Are those loans transferred to their school accounts?
Okay, so that's a good question. So for this, I think I'll just kind of explain how the disbursement process works and how money applies to students' accounts. If you are, let's just say for a full-time student, as long as you're enrolled full-time and you have no outstanding to-do items in your task tile, your grants and loans, if you've accepted your loans, will all disperse and kind of go through that system. It's going to hit your student account and look for any tuition first. So it's going to hit that tuition, and then you guys if you have any fees, like course fees, sometimes there's course fees or any other miscellaneous fees, financial aid doesn't automatically apply to that, but it can. And so how you do that is in your profile tile. The profile tile, no, it's under the financial account tile. You manage your permission. So you have to go in and authorize financial aid to cover everything. So it's called Title IV funds. But then let's just say, great, you've done that. So all your bills taken care of. At that point is when you're going to get a refund. So if you have more financial aid than you do charges, you'll have an excess of funds and you'll get that in a refund. It's going to default to a check unless you opt in for direct deposit, which can also be done under the financial account tile. And at that point, then you get that refund. It'd come to you in your bank account 24 to 72 hours after it disperses. And then at that point, then you can use that to purchase your books. WSU doesn't have a way right now to charge books to a student account, but any financial aid you have that's in addition to or it's excess of your charges, then you can use that refund to apply to books. You can use it for rent, for groceries, bills, any expenses you have while you're in school. Does that kind of answer that question, hopefully? Books are always kind of a tricky one because I know a lot of times students are like, well, I need it. I need my books now. And so we have started dispersing aid. We used to disperse it a lot later, we'll say still prior to school, but then it just kind of made a quick turnaround for students. So we're dispersing it as early as possible within the federal regulations. So hopefully we can get you guys that aid soon and you guys can get your books.
Great, thank you. I see one more quick question regarding finances, and then we can move on to virtual mentors. So do grants affect the federal aid?
Yes, so in order to get grants, you do have to fill out the application. So it's kind of like FAFSA is the application, and because you filled out FAFSA, you could be eligible for federal grants, for state grants, for institutional grants through WSU. So in order to get grants, you do have to fill out FAFSA. The amount of grants and the types of grants you are eligible for are going to be based off of that information, so that income information on that FAFSA application or that WASFA. And as I said earlier, sometimes situations change, right? Where we're using tax income information from 2 years ago. So especially right now, like situations are very different. So if that is you and your FAFSA and the income information on there doesn't reflect your current situation, give our office a call. We'd be happy to see what options you might have. But we do have some appeals and some other processes in place to kind of work with students in that regard.
Great, thank you so much. So hopefully that answers your question, Ariana, sorry. So we will be moving on to Angela Bonner, who is the Virtual Mentors Program Coordinator, so she can talk to you a little bit about that. But first, if you have attended any of our other, well, we had yesterday Bingo or Week of Welcome events. Throughout the whole week at each event, we give out a code word, which I accidentally sent out earlier, but now is the time to officially send it out. All you have to do if you're a global student is send out that code word to us via the email that I'll put in the chat, which is global.connections@wsu.edu. If you happen to be a student of any other campus, still send it to us there and we can forward that to your campus because we're collaborating with other campuses on that. So our code word for tonight is online cougs. So send us the code word and we'll send you a special prize just for attending the event. So thank you very much. And now we will hand the presentation over to Angela.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everybody. Like Andrea said, I'm the program coordinator for the Virtual Mentor Program, which Chris was nice enough to mention in his presentation. I've been working with the program since 2018, and the program itself has actually been running since 2003. So the Virtual Mentor Program is funded by Global Campus Student Services and Activities fees. And the virtual mentors themselves are either current Global Campus students or Global Campus alumni. Now, virtual mentors are placed into Global Campus courses in order to assist students in navigating Blackboard, or we have had a few in Canvas, and they're there to help, like I said, navigate through Blackboard, through your courses, to locate WSU resources. They assist with basic tech troubleshooting. They also will announce events as they come up in their forums. Now, virtual mentors cannot help with academic content partly again due to being funded by services and activities fees. So they can't tell you your grades or help you with assignment questions that have to do with, extensions or specifications of the assignment. You'd want to take that to your instructor or your TA. If you have a virtual mentor in your course, you will see a virtual mentor form in the discussion board area of each course that they're in. Sometimes those discussion boards are a little harder to find in some classes than others, but they are there. And in those forums, they will regularly post tips, again, about, finding university resources, study strategies, that kind of thing. And they will also monitor those and their emails closely for any questions they get from students in the courses. If you are in a course and you have a question about how to find something or what kind of university resources are available to you, definitely feel free to hop into the forum and ask them. Even if they can't help you directly, they can point you in the right direction. So they're always a good place to start if you're not sure where to. And starting this fall semester, we're focusing on placing the virtual mentors in courses that have really high new to online student counts. So hopefully if you're new and you're kind of still getting used to Blackboard and WSU Online in general, you can find them in one of your courses and they can help you out. They will be showing up in your courses tomorrow. So if some of you have courses that have opened a little bit early, you won't be seeing them yet, but you'll be seeing them soon. If you're not sure if your course has a virtual mentor, you can try asking your instructor because they should know. And you can also feel free to email me to ask if your course has one or any other questions you have about the program. I believe Andrea was going to share my email address as well as a link to our website, which has a lot of the same information I've just shared with you, along with links to blog posts that the virtual mentors have created in the past. And that's the broad strokes of the program. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask me. Thanks. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Angela. Yes, so I included the link to the Virtual Mentors website in the chat box, as well as Angela's email in case you need to contact her. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We are moving on to proctoring services. We have Rebecca Van de Voort, who is the newly appointed Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. She is also the Assistant Vice President of Academic Outreach and Innovation. So I'm going to hand the floor over to her.
Thanks, Andrea. And Andrea asked me to talk a little bit about proctoring today, which I will do. But if you have other questions about your academic experience, how to navigate your academic course, those kinds of things, I should be able to address most of those. So first I'm going to talk about why proctoring. I know that proctored exams are not something that students enjoy. I know that there is a lot of students make comments about sort of the creepy factor of being recorded or watched while you're taking the exam. I really liken that to sitting in the classroom and having an instructor wander around and watch students take their exam to monitor what's happening, to try and keep every student on the same playing field. Unfortunately, some folks may sometimes take advantage of freedoms that are provided them, and we want to make sure that everybody is playing by the same set of rules when they take their exam. The other question that I still get about online programs is, how do you know that the student who is doing the work is the student enrolled in the class? And there are a lot of different ways to know that, and a lot of different answers we give, and proctored exams is not the only one, but proctored exams is one way to do that, to ensure that because the fact that the student shows their ID and is watched while doing the work, 100% we know that's the student who's enrolled in the class. And really, from our perspective, maintaining these high standards of academic integrity raises the value of your degree, of a Washington State University Global Campus degree. So as uncomfortable as it is, there really are some strong rationale for doing it. That said, now you know why. How will you know if you have a proctored exam in your course? So when you enrolled in your course, when you look at the schedule of classes, there's a little, on most all of the global campus courses, there's a little link that says more information. If you've not explored that, I would recommend you do that. That's a sneak peek before you can get into your course and into your syllabus. some of the expectations, in particularly those things that might cost you money. That's where you can find out what your textbook is, whether or not there's media you're going to have to get access to through Netflix or through something like that. And that place will mention as well whether or not you have proctored exams. But once your courses are open, which will happen Friday if they have not before, on your syllabus, we also have a link at the top to the more information page. And if you have proctored exams, you can look there, but also the syllabus will describe every piece of graded work that is assigned to you. And some of that will be, I must have come past it because I know it's here. Some of that will be whether or not there's an exam and whether or not that exam is going to be proctored. So when you go to the more information page, as I mentioned, it tells you quite a bit about your course. This psych course has a $30 course fee because there is no required text. This is part of our low-cost course materials degree program. Psych and HD both fall into that. There is no media required, no materials to get on your own, but it does down here tell you the proctor requirements. Now, for those of us who've been with us, those of you who've been with us in the past, up until this August 31st, actually, the end of summer intersession, which is August 23rd, we've been using Proctorio. And for fall, we are switching to ProctorU. Some of you have been with us long enough that you may have used ProctorU in a previous term. We had always required human proctoring as well. And since the proctoring companies have begun to adopt more AI, artificial intelligence, to monitor student behavior during an exam, last spring, we moved to that for all of our WSU exams across the system. So now not only do global campus students have to put up with proctoring, but there are many students on the physical campuses who do as well. Because as I said, they would have been in courses where they would have had faculty and TAs walking around watching them take the exams, and we don't have that option now with distance learning. So when we moved away from human proctoring, that gave us an opportunity to look again at the different proctoring vendors and determine if there was a better setup for our students, and honestly for WSU, because WSU is now absorbing the cost of the proctoring. And so that is one thing. You guys will not have to pay for your exams this fall, likely not for spring, and then we'll see what happens moving forward. But so proctored exams are now free, which I think will make them a little bit more tolerable. So that's how you determine whether or not you have a proctored exam. And then from that link, it will take you to this Global Campus Proctoring Services page. And the reason I rambled on about Proctorio versus ProctorU is because since we do still have classes being delivered for intersession and they are still using Proctorio, and because we don't actually have our training with ProctorU until tomorrow morning, we've not yet been able to update all of our web pages. But your more information link will take you to the Global Campus Proctoring Services page, where you can learn about virtual proctoring, and this is the kind of information that will be provided to you in terms of how do you get set up, what do you have to do, what do you have to download. You'll have to go to ProctorU and establish an account. It'll be really a very similar experience to what we've had this spring and summer with Proctorio if you've been a student with Global. If you've not, what you'll follow these instructions, you'll go to ProctorU, you'll set up your account, and then when you're ready to take your exam, because we're using artificial intelligence, you do not have to pre-schedule your exam. So just whenever you're ready to take your exam, the instructor will provide a window of time during which you can do that. You'll go into your Blackboard course space, you'll select the ProctorU link. We'll have something in the course base. I don't know exactly what that will look like. That will take you to ProctorU. They will ask you to show your ID, either your WSU Cougar card if you have one, or a driver's license or a government ID of some kind. They will take a picture of that. They will then access the exam for you, open the exam for you, and will record the exam session. You will have to keep your face focused on your monitor. They will monitor for opening other websites or windows. Instructors can indicate that there are notes, that you can use notes or you can use a whiteboard, but that information has to come from your instructor through Global Campus to ProctorU, and then they'll know that that's okay. But it can't be sort of a one-off kind of situation where an instructor just indicates to one person, oh, sure, that would be great. You can have those notes and then you go to ProctorU and then you're in trouble because they don't realize you're supposed to have those notes. So if we had this training, or if we had this webinar tomorrow night, I would probably be able to show you in a lot more detail exactly what you're going to be able to do. But hopefully that has given you a little bit of an overview of how to know whether or not you have a proctored exam, kind of what the expectations are going to be. If you are a student, and I'm sure Meredith will talk about this some, if you are a student who needs special accommodations regarding your exam, you will work with the Access Center to get those set up, and then they work with Global Campus, and we work with ProctorU to make sure all of that is set up for you and it's not something you have to navigate and negotiate. So I think that's really about what I have on proctoring, unless the students have questions. So you don't have to make an appointment and you don't have to pay a cost. Those are two good things.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, one of the questions was actually about costs, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So yes, if you have any questions about proctoring, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We will now talk about accessibility with Meredith Goodwin. She is the director of WSU's Access Center. So I'll give the floor over to you.
Hello, I'm pleased to be with you tonight. So I'm here to talk to you about accessibility, working with the Access Center. If you are a student with a disability or a chronic medical condition that might impact how you learn or how you take your assessments. I am going to share my screen with you, and I hope that it works. Can you see my screen? Can everybody see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So my objective today is just to tell you who we are, who we serve, how to request services from our center, understand documentation requirements. We do require documentation of a disability or a medical condition. Also to understand common accommodations and also the logistics in the online environment, and to understand your responsibilities as a student who might receive accommodations, what our responsibilities are, and also what faculty responsibilities are. So I want to give you a little bit of a framework first, and 19% of any campus population are students who identify as having a disability or a chronic medical condition. And so for WSU Pullman, and this includes Global Campus, this equals approximately 3,800 students. Last year, we worked with over 1,500 students, and about 100 students from Global Campus we served last year that were part of that 1,500. Numbers of students increase every year by 15 to 20%. Not really quite sure why that is. I think there's a number of reasons. I think that students are coming to us from high school, having been identified or served as a student with a disability more and more. Also, I think there's less stigma around this. And so we're really delighted about that. The largest populations of students we serve are students with mental health conditions, chronic medical conditions, ADHD, learning disabilities. And interestingly enough, about over 90% of the students we serve have what we call invisible disabilities. So very few of our students have physical disabilities such as mobility issues or deafness or blindness. Campuses we serve all campuses except for Vancouver and Tri-Cities and Spokane. We serve Pullman students, global campus students, and students on the Everett, Puyallup, and Bremerton campuses. And we are part of student affairs, and we're housed within the Community Equity and Inclusive Excellence pillar. And so we partner with them to promote disability awareness and inclusion through a social justice lens. And our goal is to reduce or eliminate barriers to the living and learning environment by promoting universal design principles. And within the online environment, a lot of instructors use universal design principles. They teach in a way that meets the learning needs of many students and not just a few. If you are transitioning from high school, what you will find is that the biggest difference between high school and college is that students are now in charge of requesting and managing their accommodations each semester. And the Access Center goal is for all students to be independent and self-advocates. And we, of course, help students to become that. We coach students, and if there are situations that require additional conversations, we, of course, advocate on behalf of a student or with a student. So how are services requested? Basically, it all happens on our website. There is 2 applications that we have, one for academic accommodations or one for housing and for students who wish to bring ESAs to the campus. Now, of course, that wouldn't refer to you. So you would go to our academic accommodation application. And I will show you a screenshot of that in just a minute. Access Advisor reviews your information once you fill out the application and upload your documentation. And then once we do that, we contact you to arrange an intake appointment. And most likely it would be in Zoom or over the phone, obviously. And so the purpose of this meeting is to get to know you as a learner and to better understand how your disability might impact you in the living or the learning environment. The accommodation plan is then finalized and put in place. Then the student then requests the accommodations for each course that they are taking, and they do this through their profile in My Access. And so what we have is a learning information or a management information system, excuse me. And that system manages the accommodation process. I won't go into details at this point, but we do during the intake appointment. So once students request their accommodations, and they do this through the system, letters are then sent to faculty. And that's how they receive notification. So here is our next slide. Here is just a screenshot of our homepage. And welcome to the WSU Pullman Access Center. And you can see down here that there is a link to academic accommodation application. We also have a link to documentation guidelines. We have a link to a service request timeline and so forth. So documentation. Most students who have received accommodations in high school or maybe previous community colleges or four-year universities already have documentation. And so all we require is the same documentation that you may have received in high school or in your community college. The most current is probably the most advantageous, although we accept anything. Some students come in and they give us documentation from when they were in middle school. But what that does is it identifies you as a student who has received accommodations. And so we begin the process from there. We may have to request additional documentation, but we don't initially. We start with what we have. We have an in-depth intake with you, and then we put accommodations in place and go from there. Just as a note is that any documentation has to be written by a licensed medical provider or a psychologist or therapist, and it has to either be an official assessment report or it needs to be on letterhead with a signature and license number. And we also have documentation guidelines on our website. And the next slide just gives you an overview of what our website looks like when you click on documentation guidelines. And you can see that we have guidelines for each, for several categories. But the thing to remember is that these are guidelines. They are not absolutes. So we start with what documentation a student provides us. If a student doesn't provide us anything, then we have a conversation to capture the information about how they're impacted. But we may then refer you to a place on campus where you can get documentation, or perhaps your academic advisor would be able to refer you to a local resource. So what are the accommodations and services that are available? And the most requested accommodation, especially in the online environment, is alternate testing, extended time. And so time and a half or double time, it allows students, it removes barriers that students experience in a timed environment and allows them to relax, it allows them to process information in a way that they need to process. And then there are some other accommodations such as memory aids, calculators, etc., that are also approved. But in the post-COVID or pre-COVID environment, receiving those types of accommodations would likely mean that you would need to take your exams at an on-site location. Since we're currently working remotely, everybody is, then we work with instructors to figure out how can you get your accommodations and still test in the remote environment. And again, I won't go into detail, but we will if that is the case. Faculty are responsible for extending the time in the virtual environment. So we do not do that. Faculty do that. Other types of accommodations, assistive technology. So if you like to hear your material read out loud, for instance, we can provide software for you. Lecture accommodations, if you need some assistance in capturing what you're hearing. For instance, if your instructor actually gives their lectures in real time, then we would be able to help you with that as well. And then some students, due to the nature of their condition, they benefit from some flexibility, either with assignment deadlines or with attendance, if there's an attendance requirement. And so we would work with you on that as well. And we also refer students to various campus supports. But I also know that you have those through Global Campus. So what are students' responsibilities? Primarily to manage your accommodations, to register for accommodations early, to request accommodations early, to let us know if there are issues before they happen or as they're happening. Communicate with faculty. What we expect is for students to communicate with faculty within 2 weeks after faculty receive their letters. And that's what they expect. And if they don't hear from you, then they begin to get a little worried and anxious that perhaps your needs are not being met. And our responsibilities are to serve you in a timely and thorough manner. We keep everything confidential. We train you on how to use our information management system. And we also work with you on how to be a self-advocate if that is helpful to you, and so forth. And faculty, their responsibilities are to work with you to make sure that your accommodations are in place. Now, does that mean that they may disagree with an accommodation? Sure, they may. And at that point, we, Access Advisors, would have a conversation with them. But they cannot deny your accommodations, but they can disagree with them. So they have to engage in a conversation with us about the nature of their specific courses and what they believe makes the accommodation unreasonable in light of how they're teaching their course. And so once we have a chat and they understand the nature of the accommodation, usually most instructors say, oh, okay, now I get it, no worries. But sometimes adjustments are made because faculty know their curriculum much better than we do. Our staff consists of a director. I'm the director. We have an assistant director, and actually she works primarily with the Global Campus students. Her name is Rochelle. So if you do request accommodations and services, you likely will be working with her. We have 2 additional Access Advisors. We each have a caseload of about 350 to 400 students. We have a testing services coordinator, technology coordinator, and a deaf services coordinator as well. And here's our contact information. access.center@WSU is the best way to get in touch with us. And also, of course, our website that has all the pertinent information that you need. And do you have any questions at this point? Oh, sorry. I'll give it back to Andrea.
No worries. So yeah, I'm not seeing any questions. If you have any, I know we're at time now, but also if you have any questions that maybe we didn't get a chance to answer or that you think of later on, please feel free to send me an email at global.connections and I will forward it directly to the speaker, or you can just send it to them directly, whichever you prefer. But I have no problem with forwarding it on to them.